Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. Today is still fairly mild and fairly sunny, however it's going to be getting a lot cooler and a lot more unsettled over the next couple of days, and into early next week it could be really quite cold for the time of year in the north, and there could even be some snow showers for higher grounds of northern England and Scotland. There is still a lot of uncertainty as we head into next week about how extensive the cold air mass will be, how severe it will be and how long it will last, but we'll try and explore that with some longer range charts as well. So it's going to be turning, as I said, quite a bit colder next week, but as I said, the long range charts are flirting with potentially a bit of warmer air mixing in with that. Now, it is very uncertain where that dividing line will be between some of this sort of Mediterranean air that is trying to waft up from the south compared to this colder air that is trying to move in from the north. Wherever that dividing line may be, with some runs having it through southern England, there will be a lot of heavy rain along that point and some big temperature contrasts. So there could be some quite wild weather coming next week, with some areas seeing snow and frost, other areas seeing some very heavy rain as well. So explore that, as I said, in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So do start on the live radar. You can see it is pretty dry at the moment with quite a bit of sunshine out there. Again, not all areas seeing sunnier weather, some areas seeing a bit of cloud, and there are a few bits of rain off the coast of Wales and southwest England. Again, this is an extensive area of cloud. Again, could be a few showers here or there, but most areas bone dry today with some sunshine peeking through. So really quite a pleasant day. Again, temperatures not all too amazing, maybe mid-teens in a few spots, so feeling a little bit warm in the sunshine, but it's all going downhill within the next 24 hours or so. We can look to our east, where the air mass is coming from. We've got wind direction coming in from the east at the moment, not dragging anything too cold yet. Chilly in the southeast, that's the coolest spot at the moment. But you can see out towards Germany and Poland, we've got this area of precipitation, and this is this colder air mass, this upper trough that is moving in from the east, heading directly for us, probably moving in through tomorrow afternoon. As it does, there'll be initially a heavy band of precipitation through parts of southeast England into East Anglia and the Midlands, and then there'll be some heavy thundery showers as well. We've got cold air aloft, warm sunshine behind that initial weather front, and it's going to spark off some big heavy thundery showers. So turning a lot more unsettled and cooler as well in southern and eastern areas, for eventually the cold air mass sits over the top of us and sort of starts to develop into a low pressure system, and then we start to pull in the northerly winds by around Sunday into Monday. So turning much more unsettled and much cooler. Now, to put on the 2 metre temperatures as of around 2 p.m, you can see at the moment it's pretty pleasant out there. Quite a few yellows appearing, which is about mid-teens, sort of 14, 15, maybe hinting at 16 degrees in a few spots. Again, coolest along that east coast, where we do have that easterly wind. Again, it's not pulling in a ridiculously cold air mass at this point, but the North Sea sea surface temperatures are still pretty chilly, so it's dragging in some mist and murk and generally colder temperatures right at the surface compared to what we're seeing sort of 10, 20 miles inland. So again, widely pretty decent today, probably the best temperatures to the west of higher ground in Scotland, again because of the Föhn effect, winds rising up over the higher ground, descending, compressing and warming up. So you could look out to our east as well, and you can see warm over France, we've got some warmer air masses there, but through Germany into Poland, look, a big area of blues here, quite an anomaly within the larger European landscape, and this is the upper trough, got cold air associated with it. Again, nothing ridiculously cold, temperatures probably in the high single digits, and cold rain, precipitation, and thicker cloud along with that, and that is moving our way. So do now have a look at the UKV and see how this does evolve over the coming days. We do start on the precipitation charts from the latest UKV. As I said, mostly today it is fairly pleasant. That thicker cloud in the south and the west, again, could produce a few showers here or there, but most areas will be pretty sunny and pretty pleasant through the rest of the day. As we head into tomorrow, again, pretty bright and sunny overnight, and starting tomorrow, pretty pleasant, but around midday, maybe into the early afternoon, rain and clouds starting to spread in from the east. Again, around 5 p.m, just thicker cloud at this stage and a few showers drifting inland, but we start to see some heavier rain, and eventually we see more of a weather front appearing through the early hours of Friday. Again, initially through eastern areas into the Midlands. This is the upper trough arriving. So a little bit later than we anticipated perhaps the last few days, but still that heavier rain arriving through early hours of Friday, giving quite widespread rain and a thicker cloud. And you can see it sort of breaks apart that weather front through Friday, but heavy thundery showers appear in the sunshine behind it. There's cold air aloft combined with warm sunshine, temperature contrast to the surface, and we see big rapid convection. So heavy thundery showers through the rest of Friday, and that will continue potentially into Saturday as well. But we start to lose some of the intensity of that low pressure, but still some heavier showers in the north as it does drift northwards. But eventually a low pressure system properly forms. You can see that because the weather fronts that's sort of been spiralling around at this stage through northern areas starts to form into something a little bit more extensive there through Sunday into a larger weather front, and that is bringing in northerly winds as the low pressure system develops. So staying fairly unsettled, fairly cool through the weekend. Not raining all the time, but higher chance of rain and showers, especially through sort of Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the south, and then further northwards through Saturday and Sunday. And you can see through Sunday afternoon, snow showers appearing for parts of Scotland as that colder air mass does move in. And you can see into Monday, more extensive snow showers start developing, and that colder air is drifting southwards. But you could see a weather front in the south and the west, and that is where the dividing line between the very cold air is and milder Mediterranean, or even you could call it quite warm air, kind of drift in from the south, because that blocking towards Greenland not only trying to shove northerly winds in, but it's actually trapped a low pressure system in the mid-Atlantic towards sort of the Azores, and that is dragging up a southerly flow for parts of northwest Europe, and that is where the temperature line is. That's where the temperature contrast is, right through southwest England at this stage. And there is big uncertainty where that will move in, how quickly it will move in, and whether it, as I said, moves in at all. As I will decide whether southern England sees some colder, fresher, frostier conditions with a few showers around, or some very heavy rain but milder conditions in general. Now, if you look at the 850 HPA temperatures, we'll be able to see how this does all evolve over the next 5 days or so. You can see at the moment, nothing too cold aloft, but generally around average for the time of year. But it's as we head into Thursday, the cold air eventually starts to arrive, but from the east, sort of initial band of colder air before some properly chilly air arrives through Friday. And again, you can see it's a good few degrees below freezing, around that -3 to -5 point at 850 HPA. And again, it drifts in and gives us a lot of showers and develops into a lower pressure system as it drifts northwards there, and eventually starts to tug in some very cold air from the north on its western edge. And as I said, you can see the dividing line through southwest England. Very cold air slowly drifting its way further southwards. Most runs have it in for all areas by Monday afternoon, but the UKV try and nudge up this quite mild and warm air around 7 or 8 degrees at 850 HPA. That's positive 7 or 8 degrees there. So a good 15-degree temperature contrast to what we're seeing across Scotland here, across southwest England. And as I said, wherever this line does appear, we will be seeing some very heavy rain and some very thick cloud and quite horrible conditions. And as I said, there is huge uncertainty how much this colder air mass does move southwards compared to the milder air moving northwards. Again, big battlegrounds here over what will be happening with this. Again, majority do have the colder air in for at least 24 hours, most for sort of 2 days, maybe even 3 days before it brings the milder air back in. But the UKV definitely showing us that it's possible that cold air gets in for a time before the milder air budges back in and gives some very heavy rain. Now, if you look at the 2 metre max temperatures, you'll be able to see it's all over the place the next few days. At the moment, perhaps seeing 16 or 17 degrees this afternoon in the best of spots, but widely sort of mid to low teens elsewhere. Through tonight, temperatures won't drop all too low, but sort of mid to low single digits perhaps. Again, clearer skies allowing that cold edge to develop at the surface. Into Thursday afternoon, again, slightly cooler, maybe 14, 15 degrees, and along that east coast you can see it is chilly, 8 to 10 degrees, and that sort of conditions will be spreading inland with the colder air mass. Now into Friday, you can see overnight temperatures not too bad as the cloud does pick up, especially through central and eastern areas, but by Friday afternoon, temperatures will be starting to struggle in places, 8 or 9 degrees in areas with thicker cloud and rain, best conditions in the north and the west, maybe 15 or 16 degrees. Into the weekend, temperatures could be quite cold overnight in some spots where we do have clearer skies, and into Saturday afternoon, look in the far east, could see 16 or 17 degrees with a bit of sunshine, but where the cloud and rain is and the showers, only 6 to 10 degrees. You can see it's here through eastern parts of the Republic of Ireland, eastern Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, Northern England, and Wales, maybe flirting with the Midlands as well. So I wouldn't take these individual numbers as gospel, as it will all depend on the positioning of the cloud and the rain. So if this cloud and rain is further southwards or eastwards, that 16 or 17 won't exist. So we'll just have to see what happens with this, but wherever that cloud and rain does occur, it will be a cold and miserable day. And into Sunday could be a bit of a frost in the north as the cold air does start to drift in. And you can see in the far south again, maybe 14 to 16 degrees, but again, won't feel all too warm under cloud. But look at the north, much, much colder by the evening, widely at freezing or below freezing through northern England and Scotland, turning very, very cold as this air mass does push in and eventually could reach all the way down to the south coast, giving frosts even there for the end of April. Very cold conditions could be coming. So we do now have a look at the GFS and see how that does evolve over the course of the next few days and next few weeks in general. You can see the easterly wind at the moment. You can see that upper trough through parts of Germany and Poland. Now it does move in and gives heavy rain and generally colder conditions wherever that rain and cloud sits. As it sort of mills over the UK, it does develop into a larger low pressure system, pulls out into the North Sea through Saturday into Sunday, and that opens the floodgates to northerly winds. And you can see it does pull in cold air all the way for Monday and Tuesday, but the GFS does break that down by Wednesday as more of a southerly flow starts to appear. And as I said, it's because this low pressure system is out towards the Azores here, and that does pull up southerly winds, while we've got a high pressure system towards Greenland trying to pull in northerly winds. So a big battleground situation here. We'll put the air masses on in a minute and you'll be able to see that. Eventually, warmer air does push in, but it is combined with lower pressure systems, so you can see a lot of heavy rain and thundery weather with this, as it does have repeated southerly flows here in the longer range, but again, not dry southerly flows, quite unsettled southerly flows. So could see warmer conditions, maybe 25 degrees with this sort of outcome through the early part of May, but would be unsettled and thundery with that. Now, if you push back to what we're seeing at the moment, put on the raw upper air temperatures, again, colder conditions coming in over the next couple of days. You see by Friday and Saturday, that cold air mass sitting over many areas. As it develops out into the North Sea, we push in that cold air mass for all areas through Monday into Tuesday, and you can see into Tuesday, even the GFS has it all the way down to the south coast. Eventually, though, that warmer air does nudge in around Wednesday, Thursday time, and we see generally milder conditions, quite a bit milder than average there. But as I said, it's accompanied by a lot of unsettled lower pressure systems, and that means that we will see heavy rain and thunderstorms with that. But it is cutting off the cold air for the time being all the way into early May, retreating it all the way back to the Arctic. So that is one positive, perhaps more unsettled in the longer range. Perhaps a lot milder and warmer in the longer range, but unfortunately more unsettled as well. Again, it's these trade-offs. At the moment, it is turning a little bit more unsettled, but nothing too ridiculous, but a lot colder, whereas the longer range is showing much warmer and milder from the GFS, but a lot more unsettled. We will just have to see what does evolve, as things are changing very, very quickly. If we do have a look at the GEM, see how that does compare over the next couple of days. In the next few weeks, again, you can see the low pressure systems moving in from the east at the moment, developing to a larger low through Monday, through Sunday into Monday, and then you see northerly winds do evolve. And we keep in those northerly winds all the way to Thursday time, where eventually milder air might nudge in, but all the way to day 10. We keep the high pressure to our north and a generally northerly flow, which will keep it chilly. Even if that cold air does degrade away and shift further northwards and eastwards, it will still keep us generally pretty chilly here. Again, if we put on the upper air temperatures, you can see again colder air moving in at the moment. Eventually wafts into a low pressure system out in the North Sea, and the cold northerly winds do prevail. And as I said, that cold air does sort of degrade away. It's end of April here, so it's always going to warm up in the spring sunshine, but it really doesn't get fully pushed away until the following weekend, where still the -5 is flirting with North Sea coast, so still staying really, really quite chilly. Now, if you put on the temperature deviation here, you'll be able to see how there are huge air mass clashes appearing here from the latest GM. Very cold air nudging in, and you can see 10 degrees above average through northern Spain and 10 degrees below average through parts of northern France. So huge temperature contrast, but here it's setting up a few hundred miles further southwards, not near the UK. So keeping us a lot colder, still relatively unsettled, at least initially with lower pressure, but probably more into a drier, colder pattern beyond that, as we do see higher pressure sort of topple in within that colder air. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Again, looking at the ECMWF, easterly winds moving in at the moment, very unsettled with that low pressure system moving in, develops into a North Sea low and pushes in those northerly winds. Again, very similar to the GM, keeps a sort of a northerly flow all the way, perhaps until maybe next Thursday, Friday, where eventually a southerly flow does start to rail, but still a lot of low pressure around, so still likely to have showers and some more unsettled weather with that. Again, if we look at the raw upper air temperatures, colder air in at towards the next few days and develops into a low pressure system in the North Sea, cold air nudging in, but not really getting into southwest England, similar to the UKV, holding that warmer air with that dividing line through parts of Republic of Ireland, Wales and central southern England, where there would be a band of very heavy rain just lingering there. Now eventually that cold air will get nudged away by around next Thursday, Friday, but could linger across the North Sea coast for a good few days there compared to southwest England, where it doesn't really get in at all. Again, the best way to view this is to have a look at the temperature deviation, where you'll see there is ridiculous air mass clashes. 10 degrees below average here, or even 12 degrees below average, and getting towards 12 degrees above average through parts of central and northern France. A huge contrast there, and that's just going to fuel that precipitation. Again, if we have a look at the local view, you can just see if we do move it in, have through Monday into the rest of the week, you can just see an area of rain just sits through sort of southern and southwest England for a good couple of days here. Again, I'm looking at 12-hour intervals here. Every time I change the frame, that's a 12-hour interval. So we do see a rain band here stick for 48 hours in some areas. A lot of rain will fall before eventually a weather front moves through in all areas as it does nudge that that colder air away. Again, if we have a look at the precipitation accumulation, you can see the ridiculous amount of rainfall appearing here in the far southwest. Again, nothing ridiculous in terms of what we can see in other parts of the world, but for the UK, a lot of rain falling potentially in that southwest corner, and we'll have to see where that exact rainfall band does set up, but it could be a really quite horrible next week if we see that sort of pattern. I think many areas in the southwest would rather it be colder and less unsettled. So do finish by having a look at the ensembles. These are the latest GFS ensembles, and you can see how it's generally cold over the next 5 days, but around average or slightly below. As we head into early next week, it does plunge well below average down to sort of -4 to -6 degrees at 850 HPA, but there is still scatter appearing there. Still some slightly milder runs and still a few odd runs that don't go anything cold at all. So majority do get a colder air mass in for at least London. Further south and westwards, that does come even more uncertain. Quite a bit of precipitation, so it is quite unsettled over the next week or so. Longer range, not huge unsettled sign, but still quite a bit of precipitation. But as I said, huge temperature contrast next week as we go from -4 to -6 degrees at 850 HPA up to +4 to +6. So perhaps a good 10+ degree temperature change around 27th, 28th. So around next Thursday time. We can see a big temperature change as that southerly flow does nudge in, and then it does go generally average to above average. And as I said, wherever that dividing line sets up, whether it's across southwest England or much further southwards or even further northwards on some very anomalous runs, it will be producing a lot of rain. Again, if we have a look at the 2-meter temperatures, again, you can see it's not too bad over the next 5 days. Again, it's not warm at all, but it's sort of 13, 14 degrees with the sort of conditions we do have with the upper air temperatures and stuff. You can't ask for much better than sort of 12 to 14 degrees here. It does turn a lot colder early next week, 8 to 10 degrees for a good 3 or 4 days before returning back to the mid to maybe higher teens as we do see that milder air moving for early May. And you do see this well emphasised for the dew points, really quite cold for maybe the next couple of days and really cold next week as that Arctic air probably moves in down towards freezing, and that does enable frosts and potentially wintry showers quite widely, really, especially over higher routes, but you could even rule out to low-lying areas. At times, if we do see a beefy shower move in, could be a few flakes of snow or sleet within that. And of course, if we do have a look at the ECMWF, again, you see a very similar outcome, pretty cold over the next 5 days, pretty much below average from the majority of Ensemble members here, and then we see quite a big dip below average. More anomalously warm runs here, but still the majority do get down to sort of negative, a few degrees below freezing at 800 VHPA, but there are still quite a few milder runs. But you can see the overall pattern is very similar to the GFS before we do see a big rise to above average, or at least average to above average there with the upper air temperatures. Still very unsettled, so no signs of anything particularly dry, just generally cold over the next week or so. I want to say though, I can continue to emphasise through this video the uncertainty in the south. You can see it here. The Ensemble charts, they aren't 100% sure of the air mass, especially early next week and beyond. But if you compare it to somewhere like Glasgow, so in Scotland, look at the certainty here. So again, it just shows you the regional uncertainty we do have. It is going to be cold. It's going to be really quite cold in the north next week, but in the south, it is still very uncertain. So I know there will probably be some people early next week who don't see anything too ridiculously cold. And that milder air does nudge in, and maybe the cold air mass is there for a day or two. And there will be people saying, well, where's this colder spell? It's because it's definitive in the north, but in the south it's a lot more uncertain, and that's just the geography of our country and for Northwest Europe in general. So there will be people who won't see anything too cold next week, but there are other people who will be really quite in the freezer for the time of year. Again, you can see Scotland here, generally 5 to 10 degrees below average early next week, so really, really quite cold before that warm-up is a little bit more gradual as that southerly flow does prevail. So yeah, looking really quite cold over the next few days, probably more chilly the next few days, and then really quite cold early next week for all areas in the north and for some areas in the south. Maybe all areas in the south, but we can't say that for certain at this stage, as there is still a bit of leeway there with where that milder air and precipitation band will set up. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you do wrap up warm over the next few days, as it will be generally chilly for the time of year. Again, nothing too ridiculously cold, but maybe only high single digits come the weekend and early next week. And there could be frosts and maybe some ice in the mornings as well. So do make sure you do stay safe with that. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.